Staff Sergeant Nova Anderson spent 3 years fixing trucks and staying invisible at Forward Operating Base Phoenix. The other soldiers called her Wrench, always covered in grease, always quiet. But when hostile forces captured her SEAL team, Nova received an encrypted message: "Execute Protocol Valkyrie." What the enemy didn't know was that the harmless mechanic had been a deep-cover Delta Force operative for 8 years, and they had just made their final mistake. The morning started like every other at Forward Operating Base Phoenix, nestled in the unforgiving mountains of Karakovia's disputed territory. Staff Sergeant Nova Anderson, 27, knelt beside a Humvee's engine compartment, her hands black with motor oil, brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun. The motor pool was her domain, a sprawling collection of garages, parts warehouses, and vehicle bays that serviced everything from armored personnel carriers to supply trucks. She had deliberately cultivated her reputation as the quiet mechanic who could fix anything with an engine. It was the perfect cover for someone who needed to remain invisible. What her fellow soldiers didn't know was that Nova Anderson possessed one of the most dangerous skill sets in the United States military. Before her reassignment to vehicle maintenance, she had been Staff Sergeant Nova Phantom Anderson of the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, the Army's most elite killing unit. 47 confirmed kills across 6 classified operations in 4 different countries. Expert in close-quarters combat, long-range precision shooting, explosive ordnance, and what intelligence files referred to as targeted elimination protocols. She could kill with her bare hands, a rifle from 800 meters, or improvised weapons made from garage supplies. But 3 years ago, Operation Blackwater had gone catastrophically wrong. Intelligence failure, compromised assets, and political complications had resulted in Nova being burned as a covert operative. Her official records showed a voluntary transfer to support roles due to combat stress. The reality was that she had been placed in deep cover, waiting for the day when her particular talents might be needed again. That day had arrived. At 1400 hours, Nova was adjusting timing belts when her encrypted phone vibrated with a message only 12 people in the world could send. The text was brief. Package compromised. Execute Protocol Valkyrie. Authorization Omega-7. Nova's hands remained steady on the wrench, but her mind shifted instantly from mechanic mode to operational planning. Protocol Valkyrie was a classified directive that existed in the darkest corners of military intelligence. Authorization to use any means necessary to retrieve captured assets when official rescue was impossible. Someone had taken her people. She walked calmly to the base communications center where Sergeant First Class Williams was monitoring radio traffic. "Williams, I need to review the operational summaries from last night's patrols." "Why would Motor Pool need patrol reports?" Williams asked suspiciously. Nova's expression didn't change. "Checking vehicle usage logs. Need to know which units are putting excessive wear on the fleet." Williams shrugged and pulled up the digital files. Nova scanned quickly through routine reports until she found what made her blood run cold. SEAL Team Bravo had departed at 2200 hours for reconnaissance mission designation Shepherd's Watch. Expected return 0600 hours. Current status, no contact, 8 hours overdue. In hostile territory, that meant capture or death. Nova returned to her garage and activated protocols she hadn't used in 3 years. Hidden beneath her workbench was a secured compartment containing items that weren't standard issue for motor pool sergeants: encrypted satellite phone, tactical gear, and a custom weapons cache that would make special operations units jealous. Her sat phone connected to a number that didn't officially exist. "Control, this is Phantom. Package status: Phantom Control. Package is compromised. 6 assets confirmed captured by hostile elements. Grid coordinates 41.7258 north, 44.6372 east. Enemy strength estimated 40 plus. Rescue impossible through conventional means." Nova felt familiar calm settle over her consciousness, the psychological state that had made her one of Delta Force's most effective operators. "Control, requesting full tactical package and real-time intelligence." "Negative, Phantom. This is off books. No support, no backup, no official acknowledgement. Are you accepting assignment? Nova looked around the garage where she had spent 3 years pretending to be harmless. Affirmative control. Beginning preparation. Phantom, understand this is voluntary. No extraction guaranteed. If compromised, you're officially a rogue element. Understood. Phantom out. Nova hung up and began preparations that would transform her from mechanic to angel of death in less than 4 hours. The captured SEAL team was being held at a fortified compound 23 miles into hostile territory. Satellite imagery showed a converted mining facility with natural defensive advantages, elevated position, limited approaches, clear fields of fire in all directions. More problematically, intelligence indicated the compound held approximately 40 enemy fighters, well-trained militants who had been conducting operations against American forces for 2 years. They weren't amateurs, and they weren't careless. Nova studied the tactical situation while assembling her gear. Traditional assault would require a full company of soldiers with air support. She had herself, darkness, and the element of surprise. It would have to be enough. At 1800 hours, Nova approached the base motor pool commander, Major Davidson, with a requisition form. Sir, need to take the repair truck out for parts run. Supply convoy damaged the transmission on Unit 7, and we're waiting on components from Forward Operating Base Kodiak. Davidson barely glanced at the paperwork. How long? Overnight, sir. Maybe longer if they don't have the parts in stock. Fine. Just make sure you're back before morning formation. Nova nodded and walked away. Major Davidson had just unknowingly authorized a classified kill mission. The repair truck was a modified M1078 cargo vehicle that Nova had been working on for 6 months. Officially, it was undergoing routine maintenance. Unofficially, she had transformed it into a mobile weapons platform with hidden armor plating, enhanced communications, and storage compartments for equipment that wasn't in any Army manual. At 1900 hours, Nova drove through the base checkpoint wearing standard mechanic coveralls and work boots. The guards waved her through without inspection. Wrench was just going for parts, nothing suspicious about that. Once beyond visual range of the base, Nova pulled over and began her transformation. The coveralls came off, revealing form-fitting tactical clothing designed for stealth movement. Her work boots were replaced with specialized combat footwear with sound-dampening soles. The regulation bun disappeared as her hair was tucked beneath a tactical helmet equipped with night vision and communication gear. From hidden compartments in the truck, Nova extracted weapons and equipment that represented the cutting edge of military technology. Custom HK-416 assault rifle with suppressor and advanced optics. Remington 700 sniper rifle modified for extreme accuracy at long ranges. Glock 19 pistol with extended magazine and match-grade ammunition, tactical vest with ceramic armor plates, explosives kit with remote detonators, medical supplies for treating wounded teammates. Most importantly, she retrieved a small black device that looked like an ordinary radio, but contained classified technology that could jam enemy communications and disrupt electronic surveillance. Nova conducted final equipment checks with the methodical precision that had kept her alive through dozens of combat operations. Every weapon was zeroed, every piece of gear tested, every contingency planned. At 20:30 hours, she began the approach to the target compound. The terrain was brutal, jagged mountains, deep ravines, and loose rock that could betray movement to alert sentries. Nova moved through the darkness like a ghost, using natural cover and advanced stalking techniques that made her virtually invisible. After 2 hours of careful movement, she reached Overwatch position 800 meters from the enemy compound. Through her rifle scope, she could see the tactical situation clearly. The compound was built around a central courtyard surrounded by concrete buildings. Guard towers at each corner provided overlapping fields of fire. Sentries patrolled the perimeter with professional discipline, changing positions at irregular intervals to prevent pattern recognition. More concerning were the technical vehicles, pickup trucks mounted with heavy machine guns positioned to repel assault from multiple directions. This wasn't just a militant hideout, it was a fortress prepared for serious combat. Nova spent 30 minutes conducting detailed reconnaissance, identifying guard positions, patrol routes, communication equipment, and potential weaknesses. The enemy had done their homework. Conventional assault would result in massive casualties and probable mission failure. But Nova wasn't planning a conventional assault. At 22:47 hours, she made her first move. The compound's electrical generator was located 200 meters downhill from the main facility, protected by a chain-link fence and one guard. Nova approached from the generator's blind spot, moving with absolute silence across broken ground. The guard never heard her coming. Nova's knife found its target with surgical precision, quick, silent, permanent. The guard's body was dragged behind the generator housing where it wouldn't be discovered for hours. Nova planted her first explosive charge on the fuel line feeding the generator. When detonated, it would cut power to the entire compound, disabling lights, communications, and electronic security systems. Phase 1 complete. Time for Phase 2. Nova circled the compound to its weakest point, a section where natural rock formations provided cover almost to the perimeter fence. 2 guards patrolled this area, but their route was predictable and poorly coordinated. She waited in shadow until the first guard passed her hiding spot, then moved behind him with predatory stealth. Her knife eliminated him before he could react. The second guard, hearing a slight noise, turned to investigate and found Nova's suppressed rifle pointed at his center mass. The suppressed gunshot was barely audible beyond 20 meters. Nova was inside the compound perimeter. Moving between buildings, she located the structure where prisoners were likely held, a reinforced building with barred windows and heavy security. Through a ground-level window, she could see her SEAL teammates bound and guarded by 4 enemy fighters. The prisoners were alive but showed signs of interrogation. They would need medical attention once extracted, but they were mobile. Nova's mission had just shifted from body recovery to live rescue. She planted explosive charges on 3 strategic points around the compound: the main guard tower, the communications building, and the motor pool where enemy vehicles were parked. When detonated simultaneously, the explosions would create chaos, confusion, and tactical advantages for her extraction. At 23:34 hours, Nova initiated her assault. The generator explosion plunged the compound into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, but the main power grid was dead. Seconds later, her building charges detonated in sequence. The guard tower collapsed, the communications center erupted in flames, and the motor pool became a burning graveyard of destroyed vehicles. Nova moved through the chaos like a force of nature. Enemy fighters poured from buildings, shouting commands, trying to establish defensive positions in the darkness. Nova's night vision gave her overwhelming advantage. She could see them clearly while remaining invisible. Her rifle spoke with mechanical precision. Suppressed shots eliminated sentries on rooftops. Explosive rounds destroyed heavy weapons positions. Every shot found its target. Every target stayed down. The enemy commander was trying to coordinate a response, but his communications were jammed and his men were dying faster than they could react. Nova had transformed a fortified position into a killing field where she controlled every variable. She reached the prison building as enemy fighters attempted to establish a defensive perimeter around it. Through her scope, Nova could see muzzle flashes as militants fired blindly into the darkness, hoping to hit their invisible attacker. They were firing at shadows while death moved among them. Nova's rifle eliminated the exterior guards with methodical efficiency. She breached the building through a side entrance, moving room by room toward where her teammates were held. The interior guards heard her coming and prepared an ambush at the hallway junction. They expected a frontal assault through the main corridor. Instead, Nova came through the wall. Her explosive charge blew a man-sized hole in the concrete barrier. Before dust settled, she was through the opening with her assault rifle raised. 4 enemy fighters died in less than 3 seconds, precise shots to center mass that dropped them before they could return fire. The SEAL team leader, Lieutenant Commander Hayes, looked up from where he was bound to a chair. "Took you long enough, Wrench," he said with a pained smile. "Had to find a parking spot," Nova replied, cutting his restraints with her tactical knife. She freed all 6 team members and distributed weapons taken from dead guards. The SEALs were injured but functional, exactly what she needed for the extraction phase. "What's the situation outside?" Hayes asked as Nova applied medical supplies to his wounds. 40 hostiles, now approximately 25. Compound is compromised, communications down, vehicles destroyed. We need to move before they reorganize. Extraction plan? We walk out. My truck is staged 2 clicks north. Hayes stared at her. "You took down this entire compound alone?" "Job description changed recently," Nova replied, handing him an assault rifle. "Can you move?" "I can fight." "Then let's go." The extraction began at 0012 hours. Nova led the SEAL team through the compound using routes she had memorized during reconnaissance. Bodies of enemy fighters marked her path through the facility, silent testimony to the effectiveness of her assault. They encountered resistance at the main gate, where surviving militants had established a machine gun position. Nova eliminated the crew with a precisely placed grenade, then provided covering fire as her team moved through the breach. Outside the compound, enemy fighters were attempting to pursue on foot, but Nova's destruction of their vehicle fleet had eliminated their mobility advantage. She had reduced a mechanized enemy force to scattered infantry in unfamiliar terrain during darkness. The 2-kilometer movement to the extraction vehicle required careful navigation through hostile territory, but Nova's training in escape and evasion kept the team moving efficiently toward safety. At 0147 hours, they reached her concealed truck. The SEAL team members stared in amazement at the modified vehicle with its hidden weapons and communication gear. "What exactly have you been doing for the last 3 years?" Hayes asked as Nova started the engine. "Vehicle maintenance," she replied deadpan. The return journey to base took 40 minutes through mountain roads that tested both the truck's mechanical capabilities and Nova's driving skills. Behind them, fires still burned at the destroyed compound, a funeral pyre for militants who had learned too late that some mechanics carry more than wrenches. They reached forward operating base Phoenix at 0230 hours. Nova drove directly to the medical facility where her rescued teammates could receive proper treatment for their injuries. As medics worked on the SEAL team, Commander Hayes pulled Nova aside. "I need to understand what happened tonight. My team was captured by a superior force in a fortified position. Conventional rescue would have required company-strength assault with air support. Instead, one person eliminated an entire enemy compound and extracted 6 prisoners without friendly casualties." Nova considered her response carefully. "Sometimes unconventional problems require unconventional solutions." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I can give." Hayes studied her face, recognizing something he'd seen in other elite operators, the look of someone who had done things that couldn't be discussed in the official reports. "Understood. But Nova, thank you. You saved our lives tonight." "Just doing my job, sir," Hayes smiled. "Motor pool sergeant, right?" "That's what my orders say." 3 hours later, Nova was back in her garage, hands covered in grease as she worked on another engine. When other soldiers asked about her overnight parts run, she showed them the transmission components she had supposedly retrieved from forward operating base Kodiak. No one questioned why she looked tired or why there were scratches on her truck that hadn't been there before. Major Davidson stopped by at 0800 hours. "Anderson, I heard SEAL Team Bravo had some kind of incident last night. Their vehicles are going to need full maintenance inspections." "I'll get right on it, sir," Nova replied, not looking up from her work. "Good. And Anderson, nice work keeping our fleet operational. We couldn't function without reliable mechanics." "Thank you, sir." After Davidson left, Nova allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. 40 enemy fighters were dead. 6 American soldiers were alive. The compound that had threatened regional stability was eliminated. And officially, Staff Sergeant Nova Anderson had spent the night getting truck parts. Her encrypted phone buzzed with a message. "Package delivered." "Well done, Phantom." Nova deleted the message and returned to her engine repair. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new vehicles to maintain, new opportunities to remain invisible while staying ready for the next time her country needed a ghost. The other soldiers continued calling her Wrench, never suspecting that their quiet mechanic had just conducted one of the most successful solo rescue operations in military history. Nova preferred it that way. The best mechanics, like the best operators, were the ones nobody noticed until something important broke. And when it did break, they fixed it permanently. 6 months later, Lieutenant Commander Hayes recommended Nova for the Silver Star, the military's third highest decoration for valor in combat. The recommendation was classified, and the award ceremony was held in a secure facility with no media presence. When asked to give a speech at the ceremony, Nova's remarks were brief. Some problems can't be solved with standard procedures. Sometimes you need someone who thinks differently, works differently, and isn't afraid to get their hands dirty. The mission succeeded because we used the right tool for the job. The audience of senior officers applauded, understanding they had witnessed something rare, an operator who had seamlessly transitioned from covert action back to cover identity without compromising either role. After the ceremony, Nova returned to Forward Operating Base Phoenix and her motor pool. There were vehicles to maintain, engines to repair, and a cover story to preserve. But the mission had changed something fundamental in the base's dynamics. Word of the mysterious SEAL Team rescue had spread through unofficial channels, creating speculation about how 6 elite operators had been extracted from an impossible situation with 0 friendly casualties. Intelligence reports confirmed that the enemy compound had been completely destroyed by a single infiltrator using tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. Foreign military advisors studying the incident described it as operationally impossible and tactically unprecedented. 3 weeks after the rescue, Nova was conducting routine maintenance when a black SUV with diplomatic plates arrived at the motor pool. 2 men in civilian clothing approached her workstation, their bearing and demeanor immediately identifying them as intelligence operatives. "Staff Sergeant Anderson, we need to discuss your recent overtime work," the senior agent said quietly. Nova set down a wrench and followed them to a secure building normally used for classified briefings. Inside, she found herself facing a panel of military and civilian officials whose combined security clearances could access the darkest corners of American intelligence operations. "Sergeant Anderson," a woman in an expensive suit began, "your performance during Operation Valkyrie has generated considerable interest at the highest levels of national security. We have questions." Nova remained at attention. "Ma'am, I'm not sure what operation you're referring to. I've been assigned to vehicle maintenance for 3 years." "Cut the act, Phantom," a familiar voice interrupted. Colonel Marcus Webb, her former Delta Force commander, entered the room carrying a classified file folder. "We know exactly what happened that night, and we know why it was necessary." Webb opened the file and spread satellite photographs across the table, images showing the compound before and after Nova's assault. The devastation was complete. Buildings destroyed, vehicles eliminated, 40 enemy casualties confirmed through thermal imaging. "Single operator infiltration and extraction," Webb continued. 40 hostile combatants neutralized, 6 American prisoners recovered alive, 0 friendly casualties, combat effectiveness ratio that breaks every statistical model we have for special operations. The intelligence woman leaned forward. "Sergeant Anderson, we're not here to compromise your cover or discuss classified operations. We're here because situations like this are becoming more frequent and conventional response capabilities are proving inadequate." She activated a secure tablet displaying global incident reports. Hostage situations in denied territory, asset recovery in politically sensitive regions, precision elimination of high-value targets where official military action would create diplomatic complications. "The world is changing, Nova," Colonel Webb added. "Traditional military operations are increasingly constrained by political considerations, media scrutiny, and international law. But threats to American interests continue to evolve and expand." Nova studied the faces around the table, recognizing the expression she'd seen countless times in classified briefings, senior officials dealing with problems that had no easy solutions. "What exactly are you proposing, sir?" she asked. "A new type of assignment," the intelligence woman replied. Deep cover positions that provide legitimate reasons for your presence in strategic locations. Motor pool sergeant, supply coordinator, administrative clerk, roles that keep you invisible while positioning you to respond when conventional assets can't. Webb spread additional documents across the table. We're establishing a network of operators in non-combat positions at bases worldwide. Mechanics, cooks, clerks, drivers, personnel who blend into the background while maintaining readiness for situations exactly like what happened here. The program doesn't officially exist, another official added. No chain of command, no paper trail, no acknowledgement. If compromised, operators are completely deniable. Nova examined the proposal carefully. It represented everything she'd been doing informally for 3 years, but with expanded scope and resources that would make her infinitely more effective. "What about my current assignment?" she asked. "You remain Staff Sergeant Anderson, motor pool supervisor," Webb replied. "But now your maintenance duties include more than just vehicles. You'll be maintaining American interests in ways that can't be discussed in official channels." The intelligence woman activated another display, showing global map marked with potential deployment locations. Bases in disputed territories, diplomatic compounds in hostile regions, training facilities near strategic resources, places where American personnel face threats that conventional security can't address. "Think of it as preventive maintenance," Webb said with a slight smile, "identifying problems before they become critical failures." Nova considered the implications. The official military was constrained by rules of engagement, political oversight, and international treaties. But mechanics worked in shadows, fixing problems quietly and efficiently without attracting attention. "What's the operational tempo?" she asked. Variable. Some assignments might go months without activation. Others could require immediate response to developing situations. The key is maintaining your cover while staying ready for anything. "And if situations exceed my individual capabilities?" "Other mechanics in the network," the intelligence woman replied. "Motor pool sergeants, supply clerks, and administrative personnel who happen to possess specialized skills. People who understand that some repairs require more than standard tools." Nova looked around the table at faces representing the most classified levels of American national security. They were offering her something unprecedented, the resources and authority to operate in the spaces between official policy and operational necessity. "I accept the assignment," she said simply. Colonel Webb closed the file folder. "Welcome to the most important job you'll never be able to discuss, Nova. Your country needs mechanics who can fix problems that don't officially exist." The meeting concluded with additional briefings on communication protocols, resource access, and emergency procedures. Nova learned that her maintenance requests would now include items that weren't standard military hardware, equipment that could solve problems requiring permanent solutions. 2 months later, Nova received orders transferring her to a new assignment, motor pool supervisor at a forward operating base near the disputed Cormac Peninsula, a region where 3 nations claimed territorial rights and none maintained effective control. The area had become a haven for militant groups, weapons smugglers, and hostile intelligence services. American personnel in the region faced constant threats that official diplomatic channels couldn't address effectively. Nova's job description remained identical: maintain vehicles, manage parts inventory, supervise mechanical repairs. But her actual mission was far more complex: serve as the invisible guardian for American operations in one of the world's most dangerous regions. Her new facility included state-of-the-art garage equipment, extensive parts warehouses, and maintenance bays capable of servicing everything from motorcycles to armored personnel carriers. Hidden within the standard military hardware were items that would make special operations units envious: equipment for situations that required more than routine maintenance. On her 3rd day at the new assignment, Nova received her first activation. Package malfunction requires immediate attention. Grid coordinates attached. The message meant American personnel were in danger, official rescue was impossible, and she had authorization to use any means necessary to resolve the situation permanently. Nova checked her watch, gathered her tools, and began preparations that would transform her from mechanic to angel of death within the hour. Some problems required specialized repair techniques that couldn't be found in any manual. But Nova had learned that the most important repairs were often the ones that prevented future breakdowns by eliminating their causes entirely. As she drove toward another impossible mission in hostile territory, Nova reflected on how her career had evolved from Delta Force operator to covert mechanic to something entirely new. A ghost in the machine who kept American interests operational through methods that would never appear in official records. The enemy would learn, as others had before them, that some mechanics specialized in more than engines. They specialized in stopping threats permanently, quietly, and with absolute efficiency. And Staff Sergeant Nova Phantom Anderson was exceptionally good at her expanding job description. But now her tools included more than wrenches and socket sets. They included the knowledge that when the next impossible mission arose, when conventional solutions failed and official channels couldn't respond, there was a mechanic who could fix problems that other people couldn't even identify. Enemy forces who threatened American soldiers had learned a crucial lesson. Some mechanics specialize in more than engines. They specialize in stopping threats permanently. And Staff Sergeant Nova Wrench Anderson was very good at her job. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.